Mm. Something completely unexpected is stirring in the invisible currents around you, isn't it? You might be sensing a peculiar quality in the air lately, like the universe is holding its breath before delivering something that doesn't fit the narrative you've been living. Um, Let me tell you what I'm reading in the frequencies right now. The first thing coming through is this element of surprise you could be on the verge of experiencing. You might be picking up on an energy signature that doesn't match anyone you've been consciously focused on. Someone whose feelings or intentions toward you haven't been on your radar in the way they apparently exist. And that misalignment between what you've assumed and what's actually true is creating a kind of suspense in your field that you can probably feel even if you can't name it. Here's what you could be observing without fully recognizing its significance yet. You might be noticing someone in your periphery behaving slightly differently around you. Perhaps there's someone who's been consistent but unremarkable in your awareness who suddenly seems to show up with a different quality of attention. You could be experiencing fleeting moments where you catch someone looking at you with an intensity that doesn't match the casual nature of your established dynamic. And your instincts are cataloging these anomalies, even though your conscious mind might be dismissing them as random. What's unfolding in the invisible architecture around you is that someone's internal world regarding you has reached a tipping point. You might be completely unaware of the private journey this person has been on, the feelings that have been developing, the courage that's been gathering. But all of that hidden movement is about to breach the surface in ways that could genuinely catch you off guard. This reflection invites you to consider who in your current circle you've been underestimating or overlooking, and what assumptions you've made about how you're perceived that might be about to be challenged. You could be experiencing a strange sense of anticipation without understanding its source. You might find yourself feeling unusually aware of people around you, scanning faces and interactions for something you can't quite define. You could be having dreams or intrusive thoughts about unexpected scenarios. And what I'm reading in the currents is that your subconscious is already picking up on the electromagnetic shift happening in someone else's field before your waking mind has caught up. What's fascinating about this particular energetic signature is that it carries the flavor of genuine astonishment. You might be accustomed to reading situations, to sensing where interest lies, to having a general map of who feels what in your sphere. But what's approaching seems to exist outside that map. Someone you've categorized one way is about to reveal themselves in an entirely different light, and that revelation could fundamentally shift how you see not just them, but your entire social landscape. What I'm reading is that you could be experiencing this from someone who's been hiding in plain sight. This might be a person you've interacted with regularly without recognizing the depth of what was occurring for them beneath those ordinary exchanges. You could be picking up on someone who's mastered the art of concealing vulnerability, who's been carrying feelings they never intended to develop, and watching them reveal those feelings might be one of the most disarming experiences you have in this season. Um, you might be wondering how you miss the signs if someone has been harboring significant feelings. What's coming through is that you could be dealing with someone exceptionally skilled at compartmentalization, someone who genuinely didn't want you to know until they were ready to handle the consequences of that knowing. You might be experiencing someone who respected you enough to manage their own feelings privately rather than making their attraction or affection your problem to navigate before they've done their own internal work around it. What's emerging in the threads I'm following is that this confession you might be approaching carries weight, because it's coming from an authentic place. You could be dealing with someone who isn't prone to dramatic declarations, someone whose usual mode is measured and contained. So when revelation comes from this person, it lands differently. It carries credibility precisely because it's so uncharacteristic, so clearly costing them something to express. This reflection invites you to consider what it would mean to receive vulnerability from someone you never expected to be vulnerable with you, and whether you're prepared to honor that courage, even if you can't reciprocate the feelings. You might be experiencing a subtle recalibration in how you're viewing certain people lately. You could be finding yourself suddenly aware of qualities in someone you previously took for granted, noticing details about how they show up that you somehow missed before. You might be experiencing what feels like new information but is actually just information. You're finally allowing yourself to register. And this shift in your perception could be creating the energetic conditions for someone to feel safe enough to reveal themselves more fully. What I'm tracking in the currents is that you could be experiencing this surprise confession from one of several possible sources. There might be someone from your past who's re-entered your orbit recently, someone whose feelings have evolved in the time you've been apart. Or you could be looking at someone who's been a constant presence, but whose role you've mentally fixed in a particular category. Friend, colleague, acquaintance, and they're about to step outside that category in ways you haven't imagined. The energetic weather around you right now suggests openings for truth-telling. You might be experiencing a general atmosphere in your life where people feel more inclined toward honesty, where the cost of staying hidden feels higher than the risk of being seen. You could be picking up on this broader theme across multiple relationships. But this particular confession carries special significance because of how thoroughly unexpected it is, how much it disrupts your existing understanding of your relational terrain. What's also coming through is that you might be experiencing some resistance to receiving what's approaching. You could be invested in maintaining certain relational structures as they are, comfortable with the predictability of knowing who wants what from you. The prospect of someone surprising you with feelings might activate defenses, not because you don't appreciate the honesty, but because it asks you to reorganize your mental map, to question other assumptions, to acknowledge that you might not see as clearly as you thought you did. This reflection invites you to consider what keeps you locked into certain narratives about who could care for you and how, and whether those narratives are protecting you or limiting you. You might be noticing that your attention has been distributed across familiar territories lately, certain people you're interested in, certain dynamics you're invested in, understanding. But what I'm reading suggests that while you've been focused there, something entirely different has been developing in a space you weren't monitoring. And the person about to surprise you might represent possibilities you haven't been considering because you didn't know they existed. What's essential for you to grasp is that this approaching revelation isn't random. You could be experiencing this timing because you're in a different place internally than you've been before, more capable of receiving something that doesn't fit your usual patterns. You might be ready, in ways you don't fully recognize yet, to be surprised, to have your expectations subverted, to discover that connection can emerge from unexpected soil. The signature I'm reading around this situation suggests authenticity over performance. You might be dealing with someone who's confessing not because they've calculated an optimal moment or crafted a perfect approach, but because their feelings have reached a point where containment is no longer possible. You could be experiencing someone who's choosing honesty over comfort, and that rawness, that lack of polish, might be exactly what makes the confession land with such impact. What's interesting is that you might be experiencing mixed reactions once this surprise unfolds. Part of you could feel flattered, intrigued, genuinely moved by someone's courage and transparency, but another part might feel unsettled, resistant to having your relational landscape rearranged without your input. And both responses are valid. You're allowed to need time to integrate information that challenges your existing framework. You could be picking up on this person's nervous energy building even before they act on it. You might be experiencing interactions that feel slightly charged without understanding why, moments where someone seems to be on the verge of saying something significant but pulls back. You could be sensing rehearsal happening in someone's internal world. The gathering of words, the weighing of consequences, the slow build of resolve that precedes vulnerable disclosure. What I'm reading in the patterns is that this confession you might be approaching could open doors you didn't know were closed. You could be experiencing this as an invitation to reconsider someone, to explore a connection you'd written off or never considered in the first place. You might be given the opportunity to discover whether surprise can blossom into genuine interest, whether someone catching you off guard can actually be the beginning of something that makes sense once you adjust to the new information. This reflection invites you to consider what you need to feel or know or experience to remain open to a connection that doesn't match your preconceived ideas about where love or partnership could come from. The currents suggest that you might be experiencing a test of your own flexibility and openness. You could be someone who prefers to see things coming, who likes to maintain control over relational dynamics, who finds comfort in predictability. This surprise confession might be asking you to practice a different way of being, to receive what you didn't seek, to consider what you didn't plan for, to allow yourself to be moved by someone's honesty, even if it complicates your existing narrative. What's also emerging is that you might be experiencing this surprise as a mirror. You could be recognizing through someone else's unexpected revelation that you've also been hiding parts of your truth, concealing desires or feelings because they don't fit the story you've been telling yourself. Watching someone else take the risk of being seen might activate your own longing to stop performing. And that activation could be one of the most valuable gifts this situation offers, regardless of whether you reciprocate the specific feelings being confessed. So, as you navigate whatever unfolds, pay attention to your immediate reactions versus your considered responses. You might be experiencing shock or disbelief initially, and that's natural when someone rewrites the script you thought you were living. But underneath that initial response, notice what else stirs: curiosity, warmth, possibility, or perhaps clarity that this particular connection isn't for you. Both outcomes are acceptable. What matters is that you receive someone's honesty with the respect it deserves, that you take time to genuinely consider what they're offering rather than reflexively accepting or rejecting based on surprise alone. Trust that you have the capacity to navigate unexpected vulnerability from others. Trust that surprise doesn't have to destabilize you, that you can be caught off guard and still respond with grace. Trust that whoever is gathering courage to reveal themselves to you is doing so because something in your energy suggests you're worth the risk. And whether or not you choose to explore what they're offering, that reflection of your worth is true. You inspire honesty in people. You create safety for vulnerability. And sometimes that means receiving confessions you never anticipated. Let yourself be surprised. Let yourself stay curious about what emerges when people feel safe enough to show you who they really are.